Hello and what's up peeps, this is the Geek Artist back again with another video. So all cards on the table. Are you struggling with painting visually appealing environments and backgrounds? Maybe you are. And you're watching loads of tutorials on YouTube, getting Patreon subscriptions and taking online courses by so many different artists, getting overloaded with information, processes, methods, tips and techniques. But when it comes to actually applying all that knowledge into your art, maybe you're making a mess because it's all just too overwhelming. In this video, I'll try to simplify things for you and share with you guys a very easy formula that you can apply in your background and environment art and make almost any artwork look visually appealing. This video will help you turn a random thought in your mind into a rough sketch like this and eventually into something like this. If you want to know what the formula is, make sure to watch this video till the end, hit the like button, share and comment to help the YouTube algorithm recognize this as a potentially useful video and suggest it to more people who might need this. And that in turn helps me a lot. And don't forget to subscribe and hit the bell icon to get notifications about my future uploads. So this formula consists of two parts. Let's get started with the first part. And for that, I'll draw a dot at the center of the canvas. And then I'll draw some straight lines originating from the center dot and spreading out to the sides. This looks familiar, right? Vanishing point. Something very commonly used while painting using perspective grid lines, be it in 1 point, 2 point or 3 point perspective. Next, I'll slightly shift it diagonally towards the bottom left to create a bit of offset so that it can slightly follow the rule of thirds a little. Okay, so the goal of this part of the formula is very simple. No matter what you draw, they will follow these lines and point towards that central dot we started off with. By now, you've probably guessed it. We are talking about leading lines, and that's the first part of the formula. Now I'll create a new layer on top and begin sketching. I'll start with the horizon line, then I'll sketch some mountains very far away. Now some bigger mountains slightly closer to create some depth. Notice how I'm roughly following the lines, but not too strictly, or it might look inorganic, artificial, and too obvious. Let's add some mountains closer by on the left. I'll create a small arch-like interesting rock formation here to break away from the monotonous bulky shapes. Now some foliage along the horizon line on both sides, creating some sharp angles pointing to the center. Now for the ground, again some textures and rough lines to create some indicators pointing to the center. Maybe some road or a pair of rivers flowing in a zigzag manner, or maybe thin water streams vanishing into the horizon, creating sharp angles pointing to the center. Now some stray rocks here and there leaning towards the center, creating some pointy angles. A flock of birds in the sky too can create leading lines. Notice how everything is more or less following the grid lines I made for reference. The left foreground can have a tree with the bulk of the leaves creating a pointy angular shape, pointing to the center once again. I'm more or less satisfied with this for now, but this was just half of the job. Next comes another big challenge, colors. So let me make this simple for you. This is where the second part of the formula begins, and it's nothing but atmospheric perspective. That's all you have to do, follow atmospheric perspective and create some depth. The rest will catch up all by themselves. So what is atmospheric or aerial perspective? In layman's terms, is the phenomenon where objects nearest to us appear the darkest, sharpest and filled with details, but as they move further and further away, they tend to get lighter and their contrast, details and textures tend to fade out more with increasing distance. This happens due to atmosphere, miles and miles of layers of atmospheric gases, dust, smoke, fog and other agents standing between you and the object you're viewing that's far away, creating an illusion of depth. You see objects further back in the distance less clearly and their color changes in value, saturation and hue, with value being the key word here. Values are what we will be playing with. In other words, the value of the tree in this scene will be the darkest and the value of the mountain that's really far away will be the lightest. Well, technically the sky will be the lightest because it is the sky. You get it. I try to embed as much theory and concepts into my tutorial as possible with the goal of educating beginner artists, and I aim to guide you guys and point you to the right learning resources. And I recently came across this amazing course called CG Digital Environment Painting from A to Z on wingfox.com, which happens to be the sponsor for today's video. Wingfox specifically caters to courses around CG, VFX, digital art, visual development, animation, and design, and they have a really awesome collection of courses. This course in particular caught my attention because of how extensive and in-depth it goes with the fundamentals of digital art. It's a comprehensive beginner's guide to environment painting, covering all the things you need to know about environment design and its different aspects from perspective, application of light, shadow, values, and coloring techniques. The course is over 8 hours long and is split into 6 chapters, and it explains all aspects of concept design in a very simplified, easy, and beginner-friendly style. In addition, it provides all the files needed to make sure you can follow along every step, such as source files, brushes, and assignments. I totally recommend it. And the best part is it's available at crazy discounts right now. All the courses are actually. Use the discount code TGA10 to avail an exclusive $10 off on your purchase. The link's in the video description down below. Go check it out. So once you get what atmospheric perspective is, next up is choosing a color palette or color scheme. To make it easy, you can just stick to any particular family of neighboring colors. An entirely bluish, cool scene, or entirely greenish or reddish with little variations, doesn't matter. The atmospheric perspective will do the magic. And don't forget to play with the gradients. People love that. So for this, I'll go with an orangish color palette. I'll mostly be using shades of orange, yellow, and brown. Same family. Now remember guys, this is obviously not the only way of painting backgrounds, but this is by far the easiest way in my opinion. If you want to play it safe and create visually appealing artwork every single time, then this should be your go-to formula, and it will work. So I'll start off with a mid-tone orange for the base tone of the sky, paint some gradients from below using lighter yellowish orange and a wider tone of that. Now the mountain. Light reddish color, darker than the valley of the sky's bright gradient, and a slightly darker shade of that for the nearer mountains, with some darker variations for more depth. Now an even darker shade for the mountain on the left with the cool rock formation. Notice how the values are getting darker as the objects are getting closer to us. Now for the base tone of the ground, I'm using a darker shade of the sky's base tone. And similarly, I'll add some gradient near the distant horizon with some lighter tone to create depth and some value transition for atmospheric perspective. Time for the foliage. I'll pick a shade darker than the left side mountain for this. Don't overthink about what brushes to use. Just use any texture brush you're comfortable with. This tutorial is aimed at environment design and colors, not rendering, which is why you'll see me making this very roughly just to get the message across, so that you understand what the formula is. Now I'll paint some textures and patterns on the ground with a darker shade of the ground color. And these patterns will again form lines and angles pointing towards the central dot area. Use a variation of thick and thin brushes for a more organic result. I'll add some darker values to the rocks. Next I'll use the lasso tool to select the area of the twin rivers. Pick a lighter tone from the sky and paint it. The water will reflect the color of the sky. And now some cool bright reflections to take this to a whole new level. Reflection of the left side mountain and the negative light space near and inside it. I'll take a new layer in overlay mode and paint some brighter gradients and refine the reflection a bit. Now I'll add some cool foggy gradient at the base of every mountain with lighter shades of their base colors to add more depth. Let's paint the birds now with some bright white color, some rough quick strokes, and they are done. We're sort of getting somewhere now. Time to color the tree. With the darkest value in the scene, I'll make the color of the tree's bark slightly darker than that of the leaves, then add some finer design to the tree like some curvy stylized roots near the base. Now heading back to the ground. To complement the large chunk of rock on the right side, I'll paint some smaller rocks scattered across the center and left side to create some balance. Add some darker strokes on the ground near the foreground and some foliage on the right side. Now I'll add some tonal variation to the leaves of the tree with a slightly lighter shade that's slightly yellowish to mimic the green nature of the leaves under current reddish atmospheric lighting. Then paint some cool mosses or vines hanging from the branch of the tree. For the background foliage as well, I'll be painting some slight tonal variation with a lighter shade that's a bit yellowish. Very low contrast to preserve the atmospheric perspective depth. You won't see too much contrast or details at that distance. Next, I'll use the soft round brush at a low opacity and use a lighter tone to paint some fog all along the horizon where the foliage touches the ground, and some more where the rivers meet at the horizon. Now what I'll do is I'll get rid of the overly flat nature of the mountains. I'll paint some rough strokes there using the neighboring tones to maintain a very low contrast of details, barely visible. Adding some haze and glow in the lights peeping through the rock formation and on the birds, very subtle. And now I'll do something that, according to me, works like magic. I try to use this as much as possible in my environment concept arts because this really takes things to a whole new level, and it's cloud lighting. I'll take a new layer at the top, below the tree layer, and set it to multiply blending mode. Pick the soft round brush, pick a dark grayish orange color, and paint it near the foreground with some darker gradient. It's nothing but the shadow of a large chunk of cloud falling on the ground. It is a compositional tool used to direct the attention away from an unimportant part and shift it towards the focal point of importance. That's exactly what's happening here. Now with the shortcut Ctrl B, I'll adjust the colors of this layer to slightly more purplish tone to bring some color variation to all the orange and brown in the scene. And we're mostly done. Time for some post-processing color correction. I'll use some levels adjustment to add some contrast to the scene, and then some color lookups to try some variations of the mood. Yeah, I think I'm happy with this. I'll add some brighter tones to the sky behind the mountain to help the mountain pop out a bit more. Now I feel there's a lot of negative space on the right side, so to balance the composition I can add a part of tree that's off screen. So what I'll do is I'll duplicate the tree that we already have, flip it, scale it up and push it to the right side. Now I'll be modifying it by painting an extra branch, some more leaves, and a few vines to make it look cooler and different while maintaining that angular shape that's pointing to the center. We are mostly done with this. Now to sum it up, if you take another look at the prominent shapes here, they all point towards the center and they roughly follow the grid lines we had drawn in the beginning. And regarding the colors, it's nothing but just plain and simple atmospheric perspective and gradient play. No complications to make you scratch your head. And that, my friend, was the formula to painting visually appealing backgrounds and environments. I'll do some final touch-ups like adding chromatic aberration and noise, and this is ready. So I hope you liked the video and got to learn something new, and if you did, don't forget to subscribe and check out my other tutorials. So that's it for now. See you on the next one. Peace.